Hello, everyone, and welcome into the crowded booth. Little technical difficulties back there from my man Ralph Leary. God will man us in the background. Tonight, we're recapping week 2 of college football. Some big games on tap that we saw, obviously, Texas, Alabama, and some more. All that and more on today's episode, tonight's episode, maybe, of the crowded booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The crowded booth is coming on. The crowded booth with Bryce Koon.
Well, we're here on a fantastic Monday evening, a normal week, actually, of college football. No more Labor Day weekend games until Tuesday, pulling all-nighters, flying, and all this type of stuff. We actually get to talk about college football on a normal schedule. A lot of fun. But we're talking tonight, obviously, week 2 has come and gone. Will Manis alongside Ralph Leary, and my name's Bryce Koon. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're on YouTube, if you're over on podcast form, whether that's Apple or Spotify, we appreciate you as well. Guys, I guess we could start right here with the first topic conversation before we get into any of the games. It's the headliner. It's the title of tonight's show. Is the SEC's run of dominance over? I mean, look, this is an SEC that is not looking itself, not looking the part. Now, before I hand it off to you guys, I think it's good for college football that brands like Miami, Florida State, and Texas are creeping back up towards the top of college football. That's not a bad thing by any means. But for SEC fans across the country, this is something that could be a concern. So, Will, I'll throw it to you first. How do you feel about where the SEC is? And obviously the biggest one, Texas stunning Alabama. We'll just stay there. To stay there, how do you feel about the SEC, though, first?
I think everybody knows my answer. The SEC is still strong. The SEC is still the best conference top to bottom. You talk about, you see Miami's beat Texas A&M, Florida State beat LSU, Texas beat Alabama. Doesn't really matter because Texas is going to be in the SEC next year, so I don't think that matters. And those teams are at the top of Texas, top of the Big 12, Miami near the top of the ACC, Florida State the top of the ACC. But the depth of the conference is not as deep as the SEC. I mean, we saw Auburn go on the road, get an ugly win, but they did it. The only other SEC team that lost was Vanderbilt this week. So pump the brakes. The SEC is not going anywhere.
Well, it's quite interesting you say that. The other SEC team that lost was Texas A&M. We're going to talk about them.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Losing
I already
to Miami.
said that.
It's
I already
okay.
said that.
But obviously week 1 wasn't a banner week for the SEC and kind of those big non-con matchups. And I think it hurts when you kind of get into the conference conversation of strength of schedule. 1-4 against the ACC so far, which is something that I joked and put on Twitter during the game on Saturday. I said, all it took for me was to leave the Georgia Tech beat, head over to LSU, and, I was the sacrifice that needed to be made for the ACC to find some type of sustainable success against the SEC. That's okay. But, hey, we appreciate so much for everyone tuning in. Ralph, your thoughts on the SEC struggling week 1, week 2, higher profile matchups. And, look, I think it's just good college football teams and other teams rising to the occasion.
I mean, yeah, we talk about, go week 1, and you got Florida State who beats them on LSU. Florida State is probably one of the top 5 teams in the country right now. And it's not a surprising win for them like week 1. Obviously, you saw Alabama lose to Texas. I mean, we're going to talk about it in just a minute, but it was a strong game from both sides. I think Texas was just better. They had some better weapons. I thought they looked really great. SEC looks a little, everyone's kind of like, oh, is the SEC kind of like falling? I don't think so. I'm with Will. SEC is still the best conference in college football. Next year's, insane when they add Texas and Oklahoma. There's some beat up on each other day in, day out. It's what we're used to these days. So the SEC getting used to losing some games is okay. It's nothing that they're not used to. So the SEC is still strong in my opinion. I think they're probably the number 1 conference out there.
Yeah, look, it's a great conference, and apologies, sorry, we're live here on YouTube. If you're listening to podcasts, you have no idea what's happening. We got a great comment section. Make sure you check those out.
I need to know.
He needs to know. Junior wants to know about that Troy softball recruiting class. Oh my gosh! Hey,
I was wondering what you were laughing at until I saw the comments.
Join the Discord. Well, this is the thing you guys don't realize, and if you're listening on podcast form, you have no idea what we're talking about, and that's a good reason to head over to YouTube and watch the rerun of this. I can see. Will, I don't think you can see everybody, but I can see everybody, and I think Ralph can in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And Will and I are just dying while Ralph's giving a good, monologue there.
Because
I look.
So I usually just try to like stay right here. Bryce, like I'm looking like bottom of the camera screen on my computer up, and I just look down for the last few seconds. And I see both y'all laughing. I'm like, did I say something wrong? Did I answer the question wrong? It's like
it's wild. It's a wild time. It's a wild time. Hey, look, yeah, there you go. Join the Discord. Great conversation. We had a fantastic conversation happening this week. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're watching. Now, look, overall about the SEC in general, I think that when we talk about this conference as a whole, look, Georgia is still up there at number 1. You really still don't know what they have. They put up 40 points through, 2 games against nobody. I think that this season could be something different. I think we got a good comment right down there, Ralph, from our main man, Austin Bodley. SEC in general. I mean, look, Austin's a SEC homer. He rides with the SEC aggressively.
Austin don't know nobody. So
he don't know nobody. So he's got a new car, and that's all that really matters. So, look, seriously, when you talk about the SEC, I think that it's going to even things out. You can't overreact to what happens in the first 2 weeks, but there were a lot of question marks, and we kind of knew that coming into the season, especially, and we'll know you on the Auburn side of things, like there were a lot of question marks in the SEC West, like to begin with and to come out. I mean, there's a lot of quarterback questions. It's kind of crazy.
Still a lot of questions. We've learned nothing through 2 weeks.
We've learned nothing through 2 weeks, and obviously a lot of conference games picking up this weekend, which we're going to preview on Wednesday night. But let's get to the first one, Ralph, and you've already thrown it up there so generously. Let's talk about Texas against Alabama. The Longhorns, like Ralph mentioned earlier, the skill talent. Look, I mentioned this. This was a thing where the line of scrimmage for Texas was much improved, and that's kind of what's been holding them back from really making noise and making waves. Now, look, I put them in my playoff. I don't know what it means for the rest of the season, but this game right here showed you that Texas is starting to catch up with the elite programs in college football. I think you got to give credit to Steve Sarkisian and the game plan that he had. Will, we'll start with you on this one. I mean, you add A.D. Mitchell into that offense with some of those other weapons, and it just felt like defensively, Alabama just had their head on a swivel for the full 60 minutes.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think it's safe to say that A.D. Mitchell owns Alabama football. Balled out for Georgia in the national championship game, had a big night Saturday night for Texas. But yeah, that Alabama defense, they were getting blown off the ball at the line of scrimmage all night. They couldn't get a lot of pressure on Quinn Ewers, and Quinn Ewers was surgical. I mean, he was really, really good. There was a lot of talk coming into that. I think he was 0 for 20 on balls, 20 yards plus down the field. And he put those to bed. I think he had 3 touchdowns that were more than 20 yards, maybe more. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But just very, very poor performance from Alabama. They fought. They stayed in it. Credit to them for that. But Texas was clearly a step above on Saturday.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of those numbers. Quinn Ewers, 24 of 38, 349 through the air. 3 touchdowns. More importantly, no interceptions. And look, obviously the talk coming into this game from last year was, look, if Ewers would have played the full 60, they might have beaten him last year in Austin. Now on the road, I watched College Game Day. That was kind of one of the big questions. How would they respond in that road environment, a good road environment there in Tuscaloosa? And you got to give credit. I mean, look, they had a respectable running game. Jonathan Brooks, C.J. Baxter, a dynamic freshman running back they have, did enough on the ground. But look, Jatavion Sanders, 5 receptions, 114 yards. A.D. Mitchell, 3 for 78. Xavier Worthy, 5 for 75. Jordan Winting, 3 for 44. I mean, you just have so many weapons. And as I continue to kind of go down here, guys, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players with 3 receptions or more. So to your point, Will, so many weapons, and he didn't have to just key in on 1 or 2 guys. There was a ton of guys they could go to. Ralph, Alabama, look, Jalen Miller looked good against MTSU, but that's MTSU. And, obviously you see the arm talent that Milroe has. But, man, it was just so crazy to watch, and Will said it earlier, what Ewers was able to kind of drop dimes and being surgical. I think Milroe was pretty much the opposite of that on Saturday night.
Yeah, we saw Milroe have a few plays where he looked promising, where like the arm was going to be there, and he was able to make pro throws and make some really good throws, especially on the touchdown to Jermaine Burton. But he also made plays with his legs, which helped him a lot. I mean, he made some plays where he was probably most quarterbacks were been sacked in the pocket. I mean, he'd been done for, but he also was able to scramble out of that, get about 6 or 7 yards, scramble for about a 12-yard run. I mean, he did a pretty great job doing that. But in this offense, when you're playing a very good defense like Texas had, honestly, you got to be able to run the ball with your running backs and you able to throw it with your receivers. And they couldn't throw the ball to save their life on Saturday, and just looked. The short passes were hitting, and they had a few drops, and it wasn't very wasn't sinking for them, honestly. And I don't think I was texting some of my friends saying, man, Milroe might be benched at halftime. I mean, it's not saying he's playing bad, it's just that he can't complete the throws that are needed for them to win this game. And I told my dad, I said, it's not working for him. It's nothing against him, he's just not working in this program or in the system that's helping him help them win the game. So
yeah.
I don't think he's playing bad. I just don't think he works in this system very well with how they're going. And you can see if you watch the game, you watched I want to say it was the beginning of the third quarter, or maybe right before halftime. He's on the phone with Tommy Reese, and Tommy Reese just looks frustrated. And he's got his head in his hand. He's just looking straight now, and he's frustrated. He just throws that he should be making. He's not making them. So they've got a question mark at quarterback. I mean, he's very talented.
Milroe, he's not a good thrower. He can only throw a deep ball. There's no balance to that offense. When they can control the line of scrimmage, they're just going to run it. They're going to just run it right through a defense. I'm not going to say it, Bryce. I'm not going to say it.
Right.
I want to, but I'm not going to say it.
Yeah.
But there's no balance because there's no intermediate passing game.
Yeah, and I thought they ran the ball very well, honestly. Jason McClendon looked really great back there, and I thought, man, they might just run it down the middle all night, and eventually Texas had a backbone and finally stopped the run for a while, and I'm like, okay, what is Alabama going to do to answer here? This is where they show up some new version of their offense, and they come out there and start doing this all night on you. So they just never did. They couldn't get the short routes and the midfield routes down. They just couldn't do any of that. So it was kind of a one-sided offense, deep balls and run the ball. So they got a question mark at quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Jonesy brings it up good here. Bama line struggled too, and that was something for me coming into this game. A lot of things that you had heard was that this offensive line was just going to be maulers, and they were just going to run people over. And I think the increased talent level and execution that Texas provided, it goes to both what you guys are saying is essentially, look, Milroe is really good at throwing the deep ball. They can run the football. But without any type of, the Alabama we've seen over the past couple of years, the slant routes, and then elite receivers that are good with yards after the catch, without that, it really makes this offense not as dynamic. And so I think it's one of those things that, look, Texas is a really good football team. And coming into this game, I think that we knew Texas would probably have a chance. But I think that overall, I'm surprised. I guess it is because we've just had this fatigue level of Alabama at this point. Like, I'm surprised to see this team be what they are. But then I'll say this too, and I'll add this. At some point, the run of ridiculous quarterbacks, ridiculous receivers, and ridiculous running backs had to end. And I think we're starting to see the cracks show, not in the whole dynasty, I'll say, but just in this run that they've had incredible wide receiver talent, incredible quarterback talent all together. So I think it's one of those things.
That comes from everybody else around them getting a little bit better, just slowly over time, like Clemson coming down, kind of owning Central High School in Phoenix City, taking elite Justin Ross, other elite athletes from there. Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M, taking some elite talent. Sarkisian at Texas has got a couple. Cristobal at Miami's got a couple really good athletes, but Mike Norvell's done it at Florida State. So it's just everybody else over time just slowly picking one or two out of every class that we're used to going to Alabama that aren't there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Comment section popping off here on a fantastic Monday evening. Make sure you like the video if you haven't already. Let's roll to the next topic conversation here. Ralph, the next game we got to look at, and it's a big one. It's an interesting one. North Carolina escapes App State in double overtime. Guys, this, first off, Ralph, shield your ears, close your eyes. App State's really, really fun to watch year in and year out. They're a program, to me, that they've cycled through so many solid head coaches, and I'm pretty much speaking directly to Will here because I don't want to hurt Ralph's feelings. Even though on the show it looks like Ralph's just staring at my, right ear. Anyways, to say, App State cycled through
That
some
will
really,
also
really good
be
football
on
coaches.
Koon's OnlyFans page.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I don't know what we're doing there. All of these things to talk about is App State has cycled through really good coaches, and they continue to play quality brand of football. Now, are they a 10, 11-win team? I don't think so. But, man, Ralph, we'll kick it off with you here. I mean, look, App State battled North Carolina. Man, they just can't find defense. Like, is Drake May overrated? Like, what is the deal with this team? They score, but they can't seem to stop anybody, and you got to give credit to App State, who have had to continue to score with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think I texted you Saturday night. I forget what time I texted you about it, but I said, someone help Omarion Hampton, who is North Carolina's running back. He had 26 carries for 234 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, he was just carrying the team. He's just begging his defense to help him out. Please just stop him one time. And they just felt like they couldn't stop him at all. And it's not like App State was doing anything special. They're just playing their football, their style of football, which they're very good at doing. I mean, look, I'm a Sunbelt guy. I pull for Troy. We have a rivalry with them. I know last year stung when we lost them. They're a very well coached team year in, year out. They played great football. And North Carolina just cannot, for some reason, stop anybody. Now, we saw them against South Carolina play a great game. We thought, man, North Carolina looks great this year. Well, they played a team that's not bad. And now, we're having question marks about North Carolina again. So, I don't think Drake May's overrated. He had a good game, I think. I mean, only 9 incompletions, almost over 200 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. But, I mean, his receiving crew is not as good as it was. I think he is having problems with that right now. Their connection's not there, and it's going to take a tune-up game. I've been saying tune-up game I feel like 5 times this week, it's only Monday, so North Carolina needs one. They played back-to-back very difficult opponent so far. So
yeah, I mean, it's not like they really had that true tune-up game. I mean, they played South Carolina week 1 in Charlotte, and then play App State, and I don't even know who they're playing next weekend. They lost Josh Downs, which he was a key contributor on that offense.
Minnesota
for North Carolina. They get Minnesota, which is not really a typical tune-up game.
They don't have one till after Georgia Tech, honestly, because they go Minnesota, Pitt, Syracuse, Miami.
You mean
until I know where Will's going. I know where Will's going.
You mean until Georgia Tech?
I didn't say it. He said
it'll be homecoming on the flats. That's for sure. I wanted to point this out. I wanted to point this out on App State's front. Nate Noel, 26 carries, 127 yards for App State. We'll ask you the same question. I mean, the run game was rampant. Omarion Hampton, 26 carries, 234 yards, 3 touchdowns. If North Carolina wants to be the ACC's representative, okay, let's just talk hypothetical here. If they want to be the ACC's representative and potentially be a playoff team, like, can you see that happening with the way things are constructed here in week 2?
I don't think they have the players to do it. I mean, their defense schematically looks a lot better. I mean, Gene Chizik has gone in there and done his thing. He's one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. I know he's been out of the game for a while, but he's come back in and he's year 2 and they look a lot better. But I just don't think they have the players. But, I hope you listened to me, because if you did, you would have made some money, because App State plus 19 was my best bet. So.
Yeah, we don't need to revisit. I'm 0-2. I don't want to talk about it. I said SMU Oklahoma. SMU Oklahoma didn't even hit the over. It was like 28-11 was the final score in that game.
Yeah,
give me a break.
I felt great about that over. Well, you had a bad beat, because it was 14-11 at halftime, and I think at the start of the fourth quarter. I think Oklahoma pulled away late.
Just ridiculous. Get out of here. All right, let's talk about the next one here. Let's rock and roll, keep rolling. We go back to another SEC program against a Tulane team, guys, that, look, Michael Pratt didn't play in this football game. I want to give all the credit in the world, though, to, the ability of this offense and Kai Horton to be able to do some different things. Look, Tulane is a solid football team. They're a veteran team. They've got some really nice pieces, a veteran head coach that understands what it has to do to be able to win. I'll say this, and then we'll go to Will. To me, Tulane can still be that group of 5 representative. Like, they still can. Now, remember, a couple years ago when Cincinnati made the playoff, Tulane needed this game to make the playoff. I don't think they can make the playoff now. If they had beat Ole Miss, the conversation starts to ramp up a little bit. They could have a similar resume to what Cincinnati had. But all in all, Tulane looked good, but Ole Miss kind of just I think talent won out. That's kind of where I sat. That's where I sat. Will, where do you sit with this game? I mean, do you feel like the talent just kind of took over there late in the game for the Rebels?
Yeah, I think so. Tulane is really good. They don't look like your typical Group of 5 team. Now that you got Cincinnati and UCF in the Big 12, as in a Power 5, Tulane I think is taking that title as the top G5 team. They don't look like a G5 team, but they just don't have the depth that Ole Miss does. You kind of saw that there at the end. They get gassed. It was a hot day, a lot of cramping on both sides, and Ole Miss just gutted it out because they've got better talent and a deeper team. But I agree with you. I think Tulane will be the G5 team to make a New Year's Six bowl again.
Yeah, and then kind of obviously looking at Ole Miss, it's a program that we're going to be talking about a lot this week on multiple shows. Georgia Tech heads out there. Mixed feelings for a lot of folks on that game, but overall, when you look at what they're wanting to do coming into the season, they had a lot of options in that quarterback room. They settled on Jackson Dart. Ralph, is Jackson Dart coming out of this game the guy, or does Spencer Sanders get a look potentially, maybe not in a mop-up role, hopefully for Georgia Tech fans this Saturday? But what do you kind of make of this offense? Because look, we know that running back room is going to be good. Like, they got a solid running back room. The defense is going to be I think, just against SEC competition, maybe average to above average. To me, it kind of hinges on quarterback play. Where do you see this working out?
I'm sticking with Dart. I think he's still their guy. I mean, he was their guy last year. He played well last year. He had a few games where he struggled, but I think he really kind of fell into his own mid-season. I think he kind of struggled this game. But I think the whole team struggled this game, honestly. Like Will said, they had a lot of injuries, cramping, and stuff like that was causing problems. Quinshon Judkins didn't really have the best game either. I mean, he was held under 50 yards rushing. That's very unlike what we saw last year of him. I mean, both games has been kind of held, below his normal mark per game. So, I think their offense is kind of slow start this year, but they've also played, Mercer was a 73-7 blowout. Obviously, we know what we witnessed that one, but
just keep bringing it up. That's fine.
Well, I mean, look, if we're going to talk about, week 1s and week 2s, we're on week 3 here. I just realized I wrote week 3 recap, by the way, Bryce.
That's okay. That's why I don't pay you. That's why I don't pay you. So that's fine.
Exactly. But if you play a Tulane team who's not bad, they're probably the number 1 G5 school right now. I can say that. I think we can say that confidently. They struggled at first, looked slow off the start. I think they kind of overlooked Tulane. And I think the second half they kind of showed up and actually showed who they really can be. Defense played great in the second half, in my opinion. You only allowed 3 points in the second half. That's terrific, in my opinion. So, I'm sticking with Dart though. He's their guy. I think Lane Kiffin really likes him. Sanders though, he's got a good arm. I still to this day don't think it was the worst decision for him to go to Ole Miss though.
Yeah, I don't understand why Ole Miss would take him if they're not going to play him.
It's a weird decision. And then obviously LSU fans familiar with the fact that Walker Howard goes there to be the third string quarterback at Ole Miss when he was already the third string at LSU. Kind of a weird situation.
Bryce, I need you to pin that comment down there so we can save that for no.
Yeah, no, we're saving that.
We're
going to save that one for after it. But right now, Ralph, I need you to take this banner off, and then I need you to kind of talk about who is our big sponsor for tonight's show. It's Rigged and Ready, fishing apparel brand for on and off the water. You need to make sure you check them out. Look, whether you are getting out on the water this weekend or not, maybe you had a fun Labor Day, look, you got to use code CrowdedBooth10 for 10% off your order at riggedandreadyfishing.com. From hats, hoodies, sweatshirts, T-shirts, everything and anything between. Whether you're a fisherman or you just like to act like you are, kind of like me, you get to have some good fishing apparel brand for on and off the water. Make sure to use code CrowdedBooth10 for 10% off your first order today. Once again, that's riggedandreadyfishing.com. All right, we're back here on the Crowded Booth. Appreciate you so much for tuning in. Make sure to like the video. If you're listening after the fact, whether that's on WQEE throughout East Alabama and West Georgia, we appreciate you, or whether it's podcast form, audio, Spotify, whatever this great stuff is. We got David. And David says the SEC can't beat anyone in the ACC. Bold claims from David over on the YouTube channel. We appreciate you.
I can't.
It's okay. Just let it ride.
All right.
Here we go.
Quick breather.
Just breathe, guys. Breathe.
This is a
We're here.
live programming coming to you, baby. All right, no longer in the headquarters of atop the Leary household over on the Carrington Trail, but man, we're still rocking and rolling.
Let's not expose where.
David's taking a beating there in the chat. Hey,
Sorry, we're on the
game.
next game.
Miami.
Whoa,
ACC,
great timing
SEC.
here.
ACC, SEC. Talk about some delusion. What the heck is going on in College Station? Ladies and gents, I haven't talked a lot about these games, but I do want to mention this one. I want to give credit where credit's due. I didn't really feel that A&M played terribly in this game. I think Connor Wegman showed some things where he can be your guy. 336 yards. He threw 53 passes in this game, by the way. Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher led offense, which is just a recipe for a PR nightmare. All those things included 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But, guys, this is where I hit. Tyler. Will.
Well,
Sorry.
you're in the comments.
You-
Will.
all right,
Yeah,
I
you're
can-
in the comments. All Will.
Yeah, you can't look at the
Let's turn
comment
them
section right now. Tyler Van Dyke, okay, in all seriousness with this situation, last year was just a nightmare. Josh Gaddis, whatever happened down in Miami, like Tyler Van Dyke, 5 touchdowns, 374 yards, 9 incompletions. Look, this
That's
is
not
a
his
guy
name.
Tyler
not
Van
his name.
Dyke. What's his
Tyler
name?
Van Dimes. Van Dimes.
Oh,
He
Well,
trademarked
look,
it after week 1.
Just go ahead and take it there. They already beat Miami of Ohio. They take down A&M. Can Miami be the ACC opponent for potentially Florida State in the ACC title game? Look, the Hurricanes, they've got – I said this last week when we picked this game. And let the record show, I picked Miami. I said I trusted Tyler Van Dyke more than I trusted Connor Wegman.
Yeah.
Van Dimes came
And you
through.
talked me into it.
And noted Crowder Booth intern, Dr. Bob, over saying hello over in the chat. Let's keep rolling. Will, I'm going to throw it to you. Don't read the comments. Miami shows out against Texas A&M. Your thoughts on this contest?
Really fun game. It was a lot of fun to watch. Really impressed with Miami. That offensive line looking like it's really turning the corner. Took a little while for Mario Cristobal, but that's where he was going to start, and it's where he started, and it's really starting to turn a corner. His expertise showing through there. You said it, Tyler Van Dyke was awesome. Texas A&M, Connor Wegman was almost just as good. I mean, he threw his first ever interception in college in this game on kind of a weird throw. I think his receiver fell down, if I remember right. But a lot of fun, back and forth. Miami showed that they've got some athletes. They've got some players, and they're going to make some noise in the ACC down the stretch. A&M, this is a big turning point for them. This was kind of a make or break for their season. They could have gotten a ton of momentum coming out of this game, heading into SEC play, but we got to see how they react. A lot of experience, especially on that on both sides of the ball. You got ex-head coaches, Jimbo Fisher, the head coach, former head coach Bobby Petrino as the OC, and former head coach DJ Durkin as the DC. So, they've got the leadership, they've got the experience of the coaching staff to be able to right the ship here. But, like you said, a recipe for dysfunction over there.
Yeah, it's a recipe for dysfunction. Miami looked really good. And when you start to talk about how the ACC could unfold, I think the Hurricanes are positioning themselves with this win. Look, we're not talking about conference championships and trying to get that. We're just talking about contenders. And I think that they position themselves with what we've seen early from Clemson, what we saw from North Carolina, over the first 2 weeks. Florida State's the cream of the crop in this conference right now. I think that overall together it's going to be something very interesting. Good question down there from our guy Gavin Hart, kind of on the Cam Kitchen situation. I mean, look, you talked about dudes. This is a dude for them. So you talk about how do they react? I mean, look, how do you react to winning? That's something that Miami hasn't done a ton of consistently. So how do you react to winning, all together? So every time we want to be serious on this show, we just can't, but it's absolutely fine. All together, though, does Miami have the depth to withstand an injury like this? I think that's where it's going to come in. You're going to have to rely on some young guys. But all together, I mean, I think this Hurricane team could be a program that says at the end, we're one of the 2 teams standing in a divisionless ACC to head to Charlotte, and we'll see. We'll see. I think they have that type of potential. Going to be a tough out for any team, and especially including. I know we got Tech fans watching, a Tech team that's got to go down there this fall. So I liked Miami altogether. I mean, I think it was good. Ralph, your thoughts kind of on this matchup? The Aggies, man. Look, I know it's a non-conference loss. I know it's a non-conference loss.
Mm-hmm. I see it.
The SEC West still wide open.
Yeah.
Still wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, there's still a path for them.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a loss against the ACC here. I know people are hounding the SEC. Can't beat the ACC this year, and it's been a slow start for the SEC West in general. So it's wide open, like you said. I think A&M's got a still good chance. I mean, they didn't look bad. Defense struggled against a very good Miami team, a very talented Miami team. I like what Mario Cristobal's done down there. I like what he's doing down there. I think he's going to do a great job next few years. A&M, they got promise. So Evan Stewart is showing out how great he really can be. Moose Muhammad didn't really have an impact in this game. He only had one catch. I think he had targeted twice the whole game. A&M's still a very dangerous team. Connor Webman had promise. I mean, he had 2 interceptions, obviously, but they threw it 53 times. You're not going to throw it. You're not going to go 53 or 53 the whole entire game. Come on now. He showed promise. He had 1 rushing touchdown too. So A&M's not horrible. They're not a team to overlook this year. I mean, we joke about how last year they had so much promise and they were going to go and they possibly could win the SEC West and they got beat by App State week 2. This is not the same A&M team we saw last year. I think this team is a lot better. I think they're kind of more well-rounded than they were last year. So, this is like you said, the SEC West Open. Who knows at this point? I mean, Alabama's still a very good team. LSU's still very talented. A&M's very talented. Who knows? It could be Auburn. Who cares right now? We're in week 2 or we're in week 3.
It won't be.
Will's over there fighting his cat. So
Will's fighting demons over there on the left side.
Fighting a lot.
Fighting a lot. No, look, when you look at this A&M team, you have 2 teams that came into this matchup with similar opportunities to kind of jumpstart getting into conference play. A&M has a tougher road, obviously, than Miami does to get to their conference title game. When you talk about the SEC West, I mean, look, you're going to figure out, I think, a lot this weekend. LSU heads up to Mississippi State. Is LSU the team that we saw in week 1? Or are they closer to, are they close? Gosh, comment section. Are they? We're gonna have to stop live shows. I mean, we're just gonna have to stop live shows.
We're gonna stop the YouTube comment. That's where it's coming from. You didn't realize
it's just wild. But all this to say is A&M and Miami. I think we're going to figure out a lot about what their schedule are as we get kind of later into the season. But kind of all together. I mean, look, the Aggies. Ralph, I agree with you. I think it's a vastly different team. I don't think this is the same team we saw last year. Does that mean they're going to win 10 games? No, I don't think so. Can they win 7, 8, 9? Maybe so. We'll see. Miami, absolutely. To me, like we said earlier, an ACC front runner. Wow, we got we got a lot into this, and I think we can all say that words are hard. Words are hard to come by. Any final thoughts, guys, from any of the games? And real quick before we do this, Will did a podcast earlier today. Check it out on the YouTube channel and the podcast feeds. Auburn with a weird and wacky game at Cal. Didn't make any sense.
Wouldn't be an Auburn win if it wasn't weird and wacky.
Yeah, just absolutely
that is
nuts.
True.
Absolutely nuts. Will, any thoughts on the live show you want to put on here?
Well, it was shades of 2008 Mississippi State. 3-2. I mean, that was about as ugly as you can get. Just real quick, Auburn's got trouble on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I don't know if the travel was a problem. I don't know if the late kick was a problem, or if it's a mentality problem. Hopefully, it's just the wacky conditions of that game starting so late and being on the West Coast and all. But if it's a mentality problem, Auburn's got issues, but a game like this can kind of correct those mentality problems. And I think Auburn needs to make a decision with the quarterback. 2 quarterback systems, they normally don't work. Them in and out, you get predictable. Like when Robbie Ashford would come in, they would just stack the box because they knew he wasn't going to throw the ball. And then when Thorne came in, they would back off and drop 8 into coverage and make it tough for them to complete a pass. So Auburn's got some issues. They're far from a complete team. This is far from a contending team in year one for Hugh Freeze, but that's okay. I think Auburn is in a much better spot than they were this time a year ago.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a win's a win, and you get Stanford at home this weekend. Hopefully you get 3-0, and then you can continue. We kind of look forward. We're going to be previewing some of the games on Wednesday evening, 7:30. Ralph, stop smiling. We're going to preview some of the games, and I mean, just composure. Intensity and composure. You start to kind of look at some of the games. You kind of get into conference play, especially in the SEC. The ACC will have some conference play. You still have some of those out-of-conference matchups. Georgia Tech, Ole Miss will be one of the games that we take a look at. And look, my man CDawg18, loyal follower, loyal listener. I don't know, where were you last night?
Yeah.
I mean, where
were you last night when Bryce?
Where were you? I mean, last night we talked all things South Carolina State, Georgia Tech. We're going to be talking Georgia Tech, Ole Miss preview. Me and David having a good time. We're going to be talking kind of show schedule the rest of the week. Wednesday night, previewing some of the week 3 top games, giving our best bets as well. Ralph's going to have those tallied up too, so we get to look at the standings for the season's first 2 weeks. We're not counting week 0. We're just not going to do it for me. I don't want to do that. And it's my show, so I can do whatever the heck I want. So we're not doing that. We're going to have fun talking about some of those week 3 games. Thursday night, back with a preview. It's going to be a ton of fun. Thanks so much. Comment section was popping off tonight. Share it with your friends. Share it with your buddies at work, wherever you might be going, and share it with your college football fans. Will, you weren't a part of the live show last night. Ralph was the background. We had a young man come on the show and say, hey, I go to Georgia Tech. Didn't really know or care about anything about
football,
college football. Started watching your show and said, hey, so you know what? We don't have Chalive supremacies here, but you know what we are going to have? We're sending the young man. We're sending the young man T-shirt.
We're getting controversial again. Two shows in a row.
2 shows in a row. We got to stop all that. Will Mannis, Ralph Leary. My name is Bryce Koon. Thanks so much for tuning in the Crowded Booth. We will catch you next time once again Wednesday night, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, previewing the biggest games in week number 3. Thanks so much. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll catch you whether it's social media, whether it's the website, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook, whether it's your mama's basement. We'll catch you. We'll talk with you. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is another episode of The Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.